The bass vibrated through my Louboutins as I stood in the shadows of the VIP section, watching Tariq hold court like some discount pharaoh. The purple lighting of Nebula, my club, cast his face in harsh angles as he leaned back against the velvet booth, one arm draped over a woman I didn't recognize, the other gesturing wildly as he spoke. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed. Because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Miskīnah, he said, the Arabic word for poor thing, rolling off his tongue with practiced cruelty. His friends erupted in laughter. She used to wear the same 3 dresses. Ana kunt ashūf her at the coffee shop every morning, counting change for a cappuccino. I took a slow sip of my old-fashioned, the cherry resting against my lips as I savored both the drink and the irony. That coffee shop, the one I'd supposedly scraped together coins for, I owned that too, along with 4 others scattered across downtown Miami. But Tariq didn't know that. Nobody did, except for my lawyer, my accountant, and the handful of silent investors who'd watched me turn a single struggling nightclub into an empire worth $43 million. Remember when she asked you to spot her for groceries? That was Marcus, Tariq's best friend, a walking Armani billboard who managed guest relations at Nebula. My employee, though he'd never connected the dots between the quiet woman Tariq dated 2 years ago and the anonymous owner who signed his paychecks through 3 different LLCs. Voila, I should have seen the red flags. Tariq switched seamlessly between English and Arabic, the way he always did when he wanted to sound more authentic to his crowd. No ambition, no drive, just dreams about opening some little cafe someday. He made air quotes around the word dreams, and his entourage laughed on cue. The woman under his arm, blonde, surgically enhanced, dripping in obviously borrowed jewelry, giggled and nuzzled his neck. "Baby, how did you even stay with her that long?" "Habibi, I have a weakness for fixing broken things." Tariq's smile was all teeth, no warmth. "Thought I could, elevate her. Teach her about the finer things. But you can't make a silk purse from a sow's ear. You know what I'm saying?" I knew exactly what he was saying. I'd heard variations of this speech before, back when we were together, though never quite this venomous. Back then, it had been veiled as concern, as helpful suggestions. Maybe you should be more realistic with your goals, Layla. The restaurant industry is so competitive. Do you really think you're ready for that? Why don't you focus on getting a stable job first? Something practical. What Tariq had never known, what I deliberately kept from him after 3 previous relationships, taught me exactly how men changed when they discovered my net worth, was that I'd already achieved everything he thought I was incapable of. The cafe I dreamed about? I'd opened it 6 months before we met. It was called Jasmine and Sage, tucked into a corner of Wynwood, and it pulled in $20,000 a month before I'd even kissed Tariq for the first time. "Yo, T, you think she's still out there somewhere, struggling?" asked Devin, another one of my VIP hosts. He was new, only 3 months on the job, which explained why he hadn't yet learned that gossip about guests' personal lives was grounds for termination. I made a mental note to have that conversation with him tomorrow. Or rather, to have Marcus have that conversation. Before I fired Marcus, probably moved back home with her parents, Tariq said, examining his nails with theatrical boredom. That's what girls like her do. They dream big, crash hard, then retreat to obscurity. Meanwhile, us? He gestured to the sprawling VIP section, the bottles of Dom Perignon lined up like crystal soldiers, the models and influencers who'd flock to their table like moths to a flame. We're out here living the life she couldn't even imagine. The life I'd built, I thought, watching him toast with a bottle that cost $3,000. Money that would eventually flow through various accounts before landing in my private banking portfolio. The irony was so delicious I almost laughed out loud. "Speaking of living the life," Marcus said, leaning forward with that conspiratorial energy I'd always found exhausting. "Did you hear who might be coming through later?" "Who?" The blonde sat up, suddenly alert. "Word is the owner might actually show up tonight." Marcus lowered his voice like he was sharing nuclear codes. "Apparently they're thinking of selling the place. Could be a whole new regime coming in." I fought to keep my expression neutral. That rumor, entirely false, had been planted deliberately by my head of security 2 hours ago. I wanted to see who would bite, who would start positioning themselves for what they thought was a shift in power. The ambitious ones would reveal themselves. The snakes would show their fangs. "No way," Devin said, his eyes wide. "Nobody's seen the owner in, what, ever? They're like a ghost." "I heard it's some old money family," the blonde chimed in. "Like fourth-generation wealth. They don't even live in Miami." "I heard it's a consortium," Tariq added, because of course he had an opinion. "Multiple investors, very hush-hush, very exclusive. The kind of people who don't need to show their faces because their money speaks for itself." If only he knew that consortium was 28-year-old Layla Hassan, standing 15 feet away, wearing a Versace dress that cost more than his car payment, and holding documentation that would unravel his entire facade by sunrise. My phone buzzed. A text from Nadia, my head of operations and the only friend who knew everything. "Security footage compiled. You ready for this?" I typed back quickly. 10 more minutes. Let him dig deeper. Because Tariq wasn't done yet. He never was. That's what I'd learned during our 2 years together. His cruelty had layers, each one more revealing than the last. You know what the saddest part was? Tariq signaled for another bottle, and I watched one of my servers, Carmen, single mother of 2, working her way through nursing school, hurry over with a fresh magnum of Ace of Spades. $3,500. Carmen would see none of it in tips. Tariq's table had a reputation for stiffing the staff. Another note for tomorrow's reckoning. "What's that, baby?" The blonde was fully committed to her role now, playing the supportive new girlfriend with Oscar-worthy dedication. She actually thought she was going to make it. That's what killed me. Tariq accepted the bottle from Carmen without so much as a glance in her direction. No thank you. No acknowledgement that she existed. She had this whole notebook full of business plans. More air quotes. She'd show me these drawings of cafe layouts and menu designs, and I'd just nod and smile, thinking, poor thing has no idea how the real world works. Those notebooks had been the foundation of a business plan that 3 different venture capitalists had called revolutionary. The menu designs he'd mocked. They'd been featured in Food and Wine magazine 8 months ago. The cafe layouts? I'd since replicated the concept in 6 locations across 3 states, each one generating 7 figures annually. Bro, remember when she asked you to invest? Marcus was really enjoying himself now, playing to the crowd that had gathered around their booth. More of my employees, more of my guests, all of them hanging on every word of this character assassination. How much did she want? Like $5 grand? 10? Tariq laughed, the sound sharp and ugly. She wanted $10,000 for a stake in her future business. Ana qult laha, I told her. Habibi, I don't throw money into black holes. Can you imagine? 10 grand for some coffee shop pipe dream. That $10,000. The investment he'd refused while simultaneously asking me to split rent on his overpriced Brickell apartment would be worth approximately $600,000 today if he'd actually put skin in the game. But Tariq had never been good at seeing value in things that didn't immediately glorify him. Honestly, I dodged a bullet, he continued, warming to his theme. His arm tightened around the blonde's waist. Can you imagine being tied to someone like that? Someone with no vision, no sophistication? I need a woman who can match my energy, you know? Someone who operates on my level. The blonde preened, clearly thinking she'd won some kind of prize. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. What's her name again? Someone asked. The broke ex? Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, like this video. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. Layla. Tariq said, my name like it tasted bad. Layla Hassan. And trust me, boys, if you ever encounter a woman named Layla Hassan, run the other way. She's probably still out there somewhere, serving coffee and dreaming about a life she'll never have. That was the moment I'd been waiting for. Not just the insult, not just the casual cruelty. I'd expected all of that. No, I'd been waiting for him to say my full name in a room full of witnesses, to make it personal and public enough that what came next would be unambiguously justified. I finished my drink and set the glass down on the chrome railing with deliberate precision. The sound was soft, but in the brief lull in the music, it carried. A few heads turned. I stepped forward into the light, out of the shadows that had concealed me. Actually, I said, my voice cutting through the din with the authority of someone who'd spent years learning to command rooms full of investors. Layla Hassan owns a portfolio worth $43 million. She's also the person who signs your paychecks, Tariq. All of your paychecks. The booth fell silent. Tariq's face went through a remarkable journey. Confusion, recognition, disbelief, and finally, the creeping pallor of someone who just realized they'd been insulting their boss's mother at a family dinner. Layla. He sat up straight, nearly knocking over his drink. The blonde's face cycled through her own series of reactions, landing on barely concealed schadenfreude. She, at least, seemed to grasp the delicious irony of the situation. That's Ms. Hassan to you, I corrected, pulling my phone from my clutch. And you're right about one thing. You definitely dodged a bullet. Because the woman you described, she doesn't exist. She never did. She was a character I created after 3 previous relationships taught me that men like you can't handle a woman with actual power. Marcus had gone pale. Wait, you own Nebula? Nebula, Jasmine and Sage, Crescent Lounge, Azure, the Velvet Room, and a controlling stake in the Harbor Plaza development. I ticked them off on my fingers, each one a small empire unto itself. Along with residential properties across Miami-Dade, a venture capital fund that's currently seeded to $18 million, and as of last month, a majority share in Sapphire Entertainment Group. That last one got the biggest reaction. Sapphire Entertainment, the talent agency that represented half the models and influencers at Tariq's table, had been my most recent acquisition, which meant I now effectively controlled the careers of most of the people he'd been trying to impress. That's impossible, Tariq stammered. You were broke. You couldn't even afford. I could afford everything. I interrupted. I chose not to spend money on you. There's a difference. The same way I chose to dress modestly, drive a 10-year-old Honda, and pretend my biggest ambition was a corner cafe. It's called due diligence, Tariq. After watching 3 previous boyfriends transform into greedy strangers the moment they learned about my money, I decided to do things differently with you. And boy, did you fail that test spectacularly. Nadia's voice came from behind me. She'd materialized like a designer-clad ghost, tablet in hand, her expression all business. Ms. Hassan, the documents are ready for your review. Thank you, Nadia. I took the tablet, scrolling through the carefully compiled evidence. Tariq, these are time-stamped security recordings from the past 18 months. Here's you giving away VIP tables to your friends without authorization, costing the club approximately $42,000 in lost revenue. Here's you directing the bar to take care of your crew, resulting in $38,000 in unaccounted inventory. And this? I zoomed in on a particularly damning screenshot. This is you accessing the booking system to steal client information for your consulting side business. Each item I listed made him sink lower in his seat. The blonde had quietly extricated herself from his embrace and moved several inches away. Smart girl. Marcus? I turned to my soon-to-be former VIP manager. You're in here too. 15 instances of skimming from bottle service tips. 22 documented cases of harassment complaints that you buried instead of reporting to HR. And my personal favorite, the fake receipts you've been submitting for reimbursement. Did you really think a club this successful didn't have forensic accountants? Marcus opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. I can explain. You can explain it to my lawyers, I said simply. Nadia, please have security escort Mr. Thompson to collect his belongings. His employment is terminated effective immediately. 2 security guards materialized from the crowd. Marcus looked at Tariq, as if his friend might somehow save him, but Tariq was too busy doing complex mental math, trying to calculate just how badly he'd miscalculated. Devin, I continued, and the younger man actually flinched. You get a pass tonight. You're new, and you were just following Marcus's lead. But going forward, you report to Nadia directly, and you keep the gossip about guests' personal lives to yourself. Understood? Yes, ma'am? He looked like he wanted to sink into the floor. I'm sorry, I know. Learn from it. I turned back to Tariq, who had finally found his voice. Layla, listen, I think there's been a misunderstanding. The only misunderstanding, I said, my tone dropping to ice, was mine. I actually thought you might be different, that underneath the bravado and the ego, there might be a decent person. Someone who could love a woman regardless of her bank account. But you know what I learned instead? I leaned in closer, making sure every word landed with precision. The crowd around us had grown, drawn by the drama like sharks to blood. My security team was carefully recording everything, standard procedure for incidents in the VIP section, but tonight it would serve a secondary purpose. I learned that you're exactly the kind of man I was testing for. The kind who respects women only when they come with a price tag, who measures worth in designer labels and square footage, who thinks cruelty is clever and mockery is wit. And most importantly, I straightened up, smoothing my dress, the kind of man I will never, ever give a second chance. You can't just fire me, Tariq said, some of his old bravado returning. I'll fight this. I'll sue. You can't prove any of that stuff about the client lists or the VIP tables. I smiled, And I saw him recognize it. The same smile I'd worn when I'd closed my first $1 million deal, when I'd negotiated the acquisition of this very club, when I'd outmaneuvered men twice my age and 3 times as arrogant. Tariq, I don't need to prove anything. You're not an employee. You're a guest. And as the owner of this establishment, I have the right to refuse service to anyone, at any time, for any reason. I nodded to my security team. Gentlemen, please add Mr. Mansour to the permanent no-entry list. Nebula, Crescent Lounge, Azure, and the Velvet Room. Make sure the sister clubs in New York and LA get the memo as well. You're blacklisting me? His voice cracked on the last word. I'm protecting my investments, I corrected. And my staff. Carmen? I called out, and the server who'd been hovering nervously at the edge of the scene stepped forward. How much was this table's bill tonight? She glanced at her tablet, clearly confused about where this was going. $8,400, Ms. Hassan, before gratuity. Add a 50% service charge for exceptional circumstances, bring me the tablet, and I'll close it out. Mr. Mansour and his guests have 30 minutes to finish their drinks and leave the premises. You're insane, Tariq hissed. Over 12 grand? For what? Because I told a few jokes? No, I said quietly, accepting the payment tablet from Carmen. Because you showed me exactly who you are when you think no one important is watching. Because you treat service workers like they're invisible. Because you steal from businesses and lie to friends and mock the woman who loved you, all while sitting in a club that she built from nothing. I processed the payment, added a $2,000 tip for Carmen, and handed the tablet back. There. You're all paid up. Now you have 28 minutes. The blonde, I really needed to learn her name, suddenly spoke up. You know what? I'm good. She stood, grabbing her clutch. Tariq, it's been enlightening. But I think I'm going to go mingle. She turned to me with a smile that was equal parts respect and amusement. Ms. Hassan, if you're ever looking for brand ambassadors for your clubs, I'm excellent on social media. Leave your information with Nadia, I said, allowing myself a small smile. At least someone at that table had survival instincts. As she walked away, I watched Tariq's carefully constructed empire crumble in real time. The other people at his table, the models, the minor celebrities, the hangers-on, were all suddenly very interested in being somewhere else. Within seconds, his booth had emptied, leaving just him and the remains of his expensive party. This isn't over, he said, standing up. He was trying for threatening, but it came out desperate. You think you can just humiliate me like this? I have friends. I have connections. People who will what, Tariq? I cut him off. Sue me? On what grounds? I have documentation of your theft, your fraud, your harassment of my employees. I have witnesses. I have security footage. I have a team of lawyers who are paid very well to handle situations exactly like this. I paused, letting that sink in. But please, by all means, make noise. Draw attention to this. Let's see how your connections feel about being associated with someone who steals from businesses and disrespects women. He stood there, fists clenched, face red, looking like he wanted to say something devastating but couldn't find the words. It was almost sad, seeing him stripped of his armor of arrogance and revealed as just another insecure man who'd built his identity on other people's labor. Your time's ticking, I reminded him gently. 25 minutes now. He grabbed his jacket, designer, probably bought with money he should have saved, and stormed toward the exit. His departure had a certain tragic comedy to it, made more pathetic by the fact that everyone in the club was now watching, phones out, recording what would undoubtedly become Miami's juiciest gossip by morning. "Well," Nadia said once he was gone, "that went exactly as planned." "Almost too well," I agreed, accepting a fresh drink from a passing server. I was expecting more pushback. "The best revenge plots always look effortless," she said with a grin. "Speaking of which, should I call your interview at Sapphire tomorrow? The one where you'll discuss new policies for dealing with clients who abuse hospitality staff?" "Perfect timing," I said. "And Nadia, let's set up a meeting with all the VIP hosts tomorrow. It's time we had a serious conversation about respect, accountability, and what it actually means to work in my establishments." "On it, boss." She paused, studying me. "You okay?" That couldn't have been easy, confronting him like that. Was I okay? I turned the question over in my mind, examining it from all angles. 2 years ago, I'd loved Tariq. Or at least, I'd loved who I thought he was. I genuinely believed he might be different, that my test would reveal a man who valued character over capital. Instead, I'd discovered exactly the opposite, and I'd spent the past 18 months methodically documenting his flaws while building an empire he didn't even know existed. "I'm better than okay," I finally answered. "I'm free." The music swelled around us, the bassy, dropping into a new track that sent the crowd surging toward the dance floor. Nebula pulsed with energy, with life, with the kind of controlled chaos that only came from excellent management and careful curation. My club, my empire, my terms. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from an unknown number. "Ms. Hassan, this is Detective Maria Reeves with MPD Financial Crimes. We received your documentation regarding the fraud at Nebula. Would you be available tomorrow to discuss pressing charges?" I allowed myself a satisfied smile. The recordings I'd sent to the police 2 hours ago, carefully edited to show only Tariq's theft and none of tonight's confrontation, were already in motion. By this time tomorrow, he wouldn't just be banned from Miami's club scene. He'd be dealing with actual legal consequences. "Nadia," I said, showing her the message, "clear my morning schedule. I have a meeting with the police." "Revenge served cold with a side of criminal charges," she said appreciatively. "You really don't do anything halfway, do you?" "Why would I?" I watched the crowd below, all the beautiful people dancing and drinking and living their best lives in a space I'd created. I spent 2 years building a life with a man who thought I was worthless. I spent 18 months documenting exactly how wrong he was. And tonight, I spent 20 minutes correcting his misunderstanding. "What's next?" Nadia asked. I thought about the question as I watched the last remnants of Tariq's entourage filter out of the club, their golden child revealed as just another fraud. What was next? A police investigation that would probably result in restitution payments. A civil suit that would drain whatever savings he'd accumulated. A reputation destroyed so thoroughly that even his connections wouldn't want to risk association. But more than that, freedom. The freedom of finally being done with pretending, with testing, with hiding my success behind false modesty. The freedom of knowing that the next time someone asked me out, I could be honest from the start. The freedom of building my empire without apology or disguise. "Next," I said, "I stop hiding. No more secret ownership through LLCs. No more anonymous investors. Starting tomorrow, Layla Hassan's name goes on the door of every business I own." "About time," Nadia said. "Your father would be proud, you know." He always said you'd build something bigger than he ever dreamed. My father, who'd lost his small grocery chain to corporate vultures, who'd spent his last years warning me about men who'd marry me for money, would have loved tonight's drama. He'd always told me that success was the best revenge, but he'd never specified that revenge couldn't also be immediate, public, and deeply satisfying. I hope so, I said softly. Then, louder, come on, let's go mingle with our actual guests, the ones who deserve to be here. We descended from the VIP section into the main club, and I let myself disappear, into the crowd. Just another woman in a beautiful dress, enjoying the music and the atmosphere. Nobody knew who I was. Not yet. But soon they would. Soon everyone would. And somewhere out there, probably rage texting his friends or composing angry Yelp reviews he'd never be able to post, Tariq was learning what I'd known all along. Underestimating a woman is the fastest way to lose everything. I raised my glass in a private toast to that particular lesson, then let the music wash over me. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and police reports and PR statements. Tomorrow I'd officially step out of the shadows and claim my empire publicly. But tonight? Tonight I was just Layla Hassan, anonymous owner of Miami's hottest club, watching my ex-boyfriend's world crumble while mine expanded infinitely outward. And if that wasn't the definition of success, I didn't know what was. The bass dropped, the crowd roared, and I smiled, knowing that the best part of my revenge was still to come. The morning after the confrontation, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. My publicist, my lawyer, 3 business partners, and, most amusingly, 5 different gossip bloggers who'd somehow gotten my private number overnight. "You broke the internet," Nadia said when she arrived at my penthouse with coffee and croissants from Jasmine and Sage. Literally. Broke Layla Speaks is trending number 2 on Twitter. Number 1 is Nebula Drama. I scrolled through my phone, watching the videos multiply like rabbits. Someone had captured the entire confrontation from multiple angles. Tariq's face going pale. Marcus being escorted out by security. My calm recitation of his crimes. The blonde's perfectly timed exit. Even Carmen's surprised expression when I added that massive tip. "The PR firm is having a field day," Nadia continued, settling onto my couch. "They want to position you as a mysterious mogul finally stepping into the light. Forbes is already calling about an interview." "Forbes can wait," I said, though internally I was thrilled. "What about Detective Reeves?" "Meeting's at 11. She says the evidence you provided is remarkably comprehensive." Her words. Nadia grinned. "Also, Tariq's lawyer called 3 times. That made me look up. "Already? That was fast." "Apparently, your ex spent the night realizing exactly how much trouble he's in. His lawyer wants to discuss a resolution that avoids criminal prosecution." She made air quotes with her fingers. Translation: Tariq's terrified and wants to settle. I thought about that while sipping my cappuccino, made with beans I imported directly from a farm in Colombia. Another investment Tariq had known nothing about. The man who'd mocked my dreams of owning a cafe had never tasted coffee this good. Never understood that my unrealistic goals were already generating enough passive income to retire. "Tell his lawyer we'll meet after I talk to the police," I said. "I want to hear what Detective Reeves says first." "Smart." Nadia pulled out her tablet. "Also, you need to see this." She turned the screen toward me. It was an Instagram post from the blonde. Her name, I'd learned, was Sienna Rodriguez, and she had 2 million followers. The post was a selfie of her looking stunning, with a caption that made me laugh out loud. "Note to self: always check who owns the room before talking trash. Respect to Layla Hassan for building an empire while everyone slept on her. This is what a boss looks like. Nebula drama. Women in business. The post had already garnered 300,000 likes and 15,000 comments. Sienna had tagged Nebula, Jasmine and Sage, and all my other businesses. She'd effectively turned my private revenge into a public feminist moment. She's good, I admitted. Did she send that info to you like I asked? Yep. Her portfolio and rates. She's actually perfect for the Sapphire Entertainment partnership we're launching next month. Nadia made a note on her tablet. Should I reach out? Do it. Anyone smart enough to recognize a sinking ship and jump off with that much grace deserves a second look. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Ms. Hassan? The voice was male, older, with an accent I couldn't quite place. My name is Omar Khalil. I'm calling from the Dubai Business Council. I sat up straighter. The Dubai Business Council represented some of the wealthiest investors in the Middle East. Mr. Khalil, what can I do for you? Actually, I'm calling to discuss what we can do for you. Your, shall we say, public revelation last night has caused quite a stir in certain circles. Circles that are very interested in ambitious young entrepreneurs who understand discretion, strategy, and timing. I'm listening, I said carefully. We're hosting a summit in Dubai next month for emerging business leaders in the hospitality and entertainment sectors. We'd like to extend an invitation for you to speak about building profitable businesses in competitive markets. He paused. There would also be opportunities to meet with potential investors interested in international expansion. International expansion. The words sent a thrill through me. I'd been planning to go global eventually, but I'd figured I had another few years before I'd built enough capital and credibility. Send me the details, I said. I'm very interested. Excellent. You'll have the information within the hour. And Ms. Hassan, what you did last night, standing up for yourself and your employees, that takes courage. In our culture, we respect that. Yalla, we'll speak soon. After he hung up, I sat there processing. Less than 12 hours after confronting Tariq, I'd gone viral on social media, gotten a potential international business opportunity, and turned my anonymous empire into a public brand. All because I'd refused to stay silent while a man I once loved tried to humiliate me. That was the Dubai Business Council, I told Nadia, who was watching me with knowing eyes. Of course it was, she said. You know what they say, the best revenge is massive success. But the second best is massive success that goes viral and opens doors you didn't even know existed. The meeting with Detective Reeves was everything I'd hoped for. She was a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who'd clearly seen it all and wasn't impressed by much. But when I walked her through the documentation, the falsified receipts, the stolen client lists, the inventory discrepancies, I saw her expression shift from professional interest to genuine outrage. This is 15 months of theft, she said, scrolling through the financial records. Why did you wait so long to report it? I wanted to be thorough, I answered honestly, and I wanted to make sure that when I did report it, there wouldn't be any room for doubt. Tariq he's charismatic. He's good at talking his way out of things. I needed evidence that was unimpeachable. Well, you've got it. She looked up at me with something like respect. This is enough for multiple felony charges. Fraud, embezzlement, possibly identity theft, depending on how we use those client lists. We're talking serious prison time if convicted. My stomach twisted. I'd wanted consequences for Tariq, but hearing the reality stated so baldly made it feel heavier somehow. What happens now? Now we build a case. I'll need to interview your staff, examine your security systems, possibly subpoena some records. It'll take a few weeks, maybe months. She closed the file. Ms. Hassan, I have to ask, are you sure you want to pursue this? Once we start, it's not something you can just walk back from. Your ex-boyfriend could go to prison. I thought about Tariq's face last night, twisted with contempt as he'd mocked my dreams. I thought about Carmen, counting her tips and trying to make rent while men like him stiffed her and treated her like furniture. I thought about every woman who'd ever been called poor thing by a man who couldn't see her worth. I'm sure, I said firmly. He didn't just steal from me. He stole from my business, which means he stole from every employee who depends on that business for their livelihood. That's not something I'm willing to overlook. Detective Reeves nodded, satisfied. Then we'll proceed. I'll be in touch. Tariq's lawyer called while I was in the elevator leaving the police station. I let it go to voicemail, then called my own lawyer, Patricia Chen, who'd helped me structure all my business deals and who had the personality of a velociraptor in Chanel. I heard about last night, she said by way of greeting. Spectacular work. I assume Tariq's lawyer is calling to grovel. Haven't listened to the message yet. Don't. Let me handle it. What do you want? That was Patricia. Straight to the point. No wasted words. I want full restitution for everything he stole. I want him banned from every property I own or have an interest in. And I want it in writing that he'll never attempt to contact me or any of my employees again. What about criminal charges? Those proceed regardless. This is civil. I want my money back, and I want legal protection. Done. I'll have a settlement offer ready by tonight. If he balks, we go to court and make this as public and painful as possible. Perfect. Layla? Patricia's voice softened slightly, which for her was like a normal person breaking into tears. I'm proud of you. I know that probably sounds weird coming from your lawyer, but I've watched you hide your success for years because of men who couldn't handle it. It's about time you stopped apologizing for being excellent. After we hung up, I realized I was crying. Not sad tears, something else. Relief, maybe. Or release. For so long, I'd been carrying the weight of my own success in secret, treating it like something shameful that needed to be hidden. And in one night, I decided to stop. The next few weeks were a blur of activity. Detective Reeves interviewed my staff, all of whom corroborated the theft and harassment. Tariq's lawyer tried to negotiate, but Patricia was merciless. Full restitution plus damages, or we'd see him in court. He settled within 72 hours. The check arrived on a Wednesday morning. $137,000, representing everything he'd stolen plus interest and penalties. I donated it all to a scholarship fund for aspiring entrepreneurs from low-income backgrounds. A reporter asked me why, and I told them the truth. Because money stolen from dreams should go to funding new ones. That quote went viral too. By Thursday, I had speaking requests from 3 universities and a potential book deal. But the real turning point came 2 weeks later, when I stood in front of my entire staff at Nebula, servers, bartenders, security, hosts, everyone, and made an announcement. I owe you all an apology, I started, and I saw confusion ripple through the crowd. For the past 3 years, I've owned this club anonymously. I've hidden behind LLCs and corporate structures, and I've let people like Marcus and Tariq create a culture that didn't reflect my values. That changes now. I clicked to the first slide of my presentation. Effective immediately, we're implementing new policies. First, 20% automatic gratuity on all VIP tables, split evenly among serving staff. Second, a zero-tolerance policy for harassment of staff or guests. Third, a tip protection program that guarantees minimum earnings even on slow nights. The room was silent, everyone processing. Fourth, I continued, profit sharing. Every employee who's been here more than 6 months gets a percentage of quarterly profits. Because this business succeeds because of your work, and you deserve to share in that success. Carmen, standing in the back, started crying. Other people were whispering, checking if they'd heard correctly. I built this empire by learning from my father's mistakes, I said. He lost his business because he couldn't protect his workers, and they couldn't protect him. I won't make that mistake. You're not just employees, you're partners in this, and partners take care of each other. The applause started slowly, then built to something that felt like vindication. A month after the confrontation, I was sitting in my office at Nebula when Nadia knocked on the door. "You have a visitor," she said, and something in her tone made me look up sharply. "Tariq's downstairs. He says he needs to talk to you." Every muscle in my body tensed. "Tell security to remove him. He's banned." I did. He says he'll leave, but he asked if you'd give him 5 minutes first. Just 5 minutes, and then he'll go. I shouldn't have agreed. Every instinct told me to have him thrown out, to maintain my boundaries, to refuse him even this small request. But something, curiosity maybe, or the desire for closure, made me nod. 5 minutes, in here, with security outside the door. Nadia brought him up, and I barely recognized him. The cocky swagger was gone. He looked thinner, older, worn down by consequences. His designer clothes had been replaced with a plain t-shirt and jeans. When he sat down across from my desk, he wouldn't meet my eyes. "Thank you for seeing me," he said quietly. "I know I don't deserve it." "You don't," I agreed. "You have 4 minutes left." He flinched but nodded. "I've been going to therapy. Court-mandated, but I'm actually learning things about myself, about how I treat people." He finally looked at me. "I'm not here to ask for forgiveness. I don't expect that. I just wanted to say I'm sorry." "For what, specifically?" I kept my voice cold. "For mocking me? For stealing from my business? For treating my employees like trash?" "Be specific, Tariq, because I want to know if you actually understand what you did wrong." "All of it," he said, "but mostly for not seeing you, the real you. You trusted me enough to be vulnerable, to pretend to be someone else so you could test if I'd love you for who you were, not what you had. And I failed that test in every possible way." "Yes," I said simply. "You did." "I've been thinking about something you said that night, about how you created a character after 3 previous relationships taught you to be careful." He leaned forward slightly. "That means 3 other guys hurt you before me. 3 other guys made you feel like you had to hide your success. And instead of being the one who changed that pattern, I made it worse. I hadn't expected this level of self-awareness. It threw me off balance." "I can't undo what I did," Tariq continued. "I can't give you back the 2 years you wasted on me, or the 18 months you spent documenting my crimes because you knew I'd never admit to them voluntarily. But I can tell you that watching you stand up for yourself, watching you refuse to be diminished, it broke something in me. Something that needed to break." 3 minutes, I said, checking my watch. "I know I've been charged with fraud. I know I'm probably going to prison. My lawyer says with a plea deal, maybe 2 years, maybe less. And I know that when I get out, my reputation will be destroyed. My career will be over. And everyone I know will remember me as the idiot who stole from his ex-girlfriend's club while sitting in her club. Good, I said flatly. That's exactly what you deserve. I know. He stood up, time running out. I just wanted you to know that you were right about me, about everything. And I'm sorry that you had to be right. I'm sorry that the world made you so cautious that you felt you had to test people. And I'm sorry I proved that your caution was justified. He walked to the door, then turned back. Also, for what it's worth, that cafe you dreamed about, Jasmine and Sage, I went there last week, just to see it. And it's beautiful, Layla. Everything you built is beautiful. I'm sorry I couldn't see that when it mattered. After he left, I sat alone in my office for a long time. I'd expected to feel triumphant, hearing him admit defeat. Instead, I felt oddly sad, not for him, but for the version of me that had loved him, that had hoped he might be different. But that sadness didn't last long. Because my phone rang, and it was Omar Khalil from Dubai, confirming my speaking slot at their summit. And after that, Patricia called with news that 3 different venture capitalists wanted to discuss international expansion. And then Sienna sent a message saying she'd booked 5 major influencers for Nebula's anniversary party. Life moved forward. It always did. 6 months after that night, I stood on a stage in Dubai, looking out at an audience of 2,000 entrepreneurs, investors, and business leaders from across the Middle East and beyond. My speech was about building sustainable businesses in competitive markets, but everyone knew they were really there to hear about the viral confrontation that had made me famous. I didn't disappoint them. The greatest business lesson I ever learned, I said, coming to the end of my talk, came from pretending to be broke. For 2 years, I lived modestly, dressed simply, and let someone I loved believe I was unsuccessful. And in doing so, I learned exactly how people treat those they perceive as lesser. The audience was rapt, silent. I learned that respect is too often conditional, that kindness is rationed based on status, that the same man who will mock a struggling woman will bow and scrape before a successful one, not because she changed, but because his perception of her value changed. I paused, letting that land. Building a business is hard. Building a business while female is harder. But building a business while deciding to be honest about your success, to refuse to shrink yourself to make others comfortable, that's the hardest and most rewarding thing I've ever done. The applause was thunderous. After I left the stage, I was swarmed by people wanting to connect, to invest, to partner. Omar Khalil introduced me to a Saudi prince interested in bringing my club concept to Riyadh. A Moroccan entrepreneur wanted to franchise Jasmine and Sage across North Africa. A French investor suggested Paris. My empire, it seemed, was going global. That night, I posted a photo on Instagram for the first time, me in Dubai, standing in front of the Burj Khalifa, with a caption that said simply, "She was never broke. She was just selective about who got to see her shine." The post got 5 million likes in 24 hours. Back in Miami, I held a party at Nebula to celebrate the Dubai success. My entire team was there, along with family, friends, and the journalists who'd been following my story. Sienna came, bringing half the influencer community with her. Even Carmen brought her kids, who stared wide-eyed at the club their mom worked in. I made a toast. To everyone who ever called me broke, I said, raising my glass. Thank you for the motivation. To everyone who supported me in secret, thank you for the foundation. And to everyone here tonight, thank you for being part of the empire I built despite them all. Yalla, someone shouted, and the crowd laughed and echoed it. Yalla, yalla. Later, Nadia found me on the balcony overlooking the dance floor. You did it, she said. Everything you planned. Everything you fought for. You did it. We did it, I corrected. I couldn't have done any of this alone. True. But you're the one who had the courage to test Tariq in the first place, and the strength to document everything when he failed, and the backbone to stand up in front of everyone and claim what was yours. She clinked her glass against mine. That wasn't us. That was all you. I looked down at the crowd, my employees, my friends, my community, all of them dancing and laughing in a space I'd created. My father would have been proud. Hell, I was proud. You know what the best part is? I said to Nadia. I don't have to hide anymore. No more fake names. No more secret ownership. No more pretending to be less than I am just to test if someone can handle the real me. So what's next? More international expansion? Another business acquisition? I smiled, thinking about the possibilities stretching out before me like an endless highway. Next, I think I'm going to buy that coffee shop Tariq used to watch me count change at. Turn it into the flagship location for a new franchise. Call it something ironic. Like what? Broke Girl Coffee, I said, and we both laughed. Nah, maybe something classier. Empire Brew. Hustle and heart. I'll figure it out. You always do. We stood there together, watching my empire pulse with life below us. And I realized something. Tariq's mockery had been a gift in its way, because it had forced me to stop hiding, to stop apologizing, to stop shrinking myself for men who couldn't handle my magnitude. I was Layla Hassan. I was broke once, actually broke, after my father died and his business collapsed. I'd built myself back up from nothing, one cafe at a time, one smart investment at a time, one strategic decision at a time. And I'd done it all while men like Tariq assumed I was weak because I was quiet, poor because I was modest, unsuccessful because I wasn't loud. Their mistake, my advantage. The music shifted to something with a heavier beat, and the crowd roared their approval. My club, my rules, my empire. And somewhere out there, maybe Tariq was watching the live stream of this party, seeing the success he'd mocked turned into something tangible and unstoppable. Maybe he was in therapy, learning to be better. Maybe he was in prison, paying for his crimes. Maybe he'd moved on completely, forgotten me, rebuilt his life. It didn't matter anymore. Because I'd learned the ultimate lesson. The best revenge isn't just success. It's becoming so successful that the person who hurt you becomes irrelevant to your story. They become a footnote, a cautionary tale, a remember when that makes people shake their heads and wonder what they were thinking. Tariq would always be the man who called me broken Arabic at my own club. That story would follow him forever. But I was so much more than that story. I was the empire that came after. The global expansion, the speaking tours, the book deal that was in negotiation, the legacy I was building. I was the woman who turned humiliation into motivation, pain into profit, and mockery into millions. And that, I decided, was the happiest ending I could have written. Come on, I said to Nadia, pulling her toward the stairs. Let's go dance in our own club. We earned it. We descended into the crowd, and I let the music wash over me. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new heights to climb. But tonight, I was just Layla. No longer broke, no longer hiding, no longer apologizing for being exactly who I'd always been. Exceptional. The end. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.